Alright, so in this video we're going to take a look at the ComboBox control. So a combo box is going to allow the user to select an item from a drop-down list. So anytime you've seen one of these controls in, say, maybe like a form, typically a good example where you might see it, probably the most common situation is when you're specifying for your address, maybe the country that you live in. That's typically done with a combo box, where you'll see what looks like a text field with maybe some default value inside of it, so some default text. There's then going to be that little arrow that you would click on, and then it pulls up the entire list of different selections for you to choose from. So the way that we're going to be approaching this, we're going to see the syntax right here. So we've got our combo box. We've then got a data type that we're going to use to specify what the types for all the different selections will be. So in this case, we're doing one with different strings. Then we give it a name of some kind. So in this case, I'm calling it my name combo box, since this particular one's going to hold a list of names. And then I'm going to say that it's equal to a new combo box. So you can kind of see right here that it has that same syntax as the list view, where we're specifying that it's a combo box, kind of like when we specified it was a list view. And then we have that pair of angular brackets, and we're putting in the data type of the different individual items that we're putting into that combo box. So then to actually add some content, so different items to that combo box, we're going to use the getItems method. That'll give us a list of all of the items inside of that combo box. And then we can use some method, maybe like the addAll method, to go ahead and add several different strings to it. So again, very similar to what we saw with the list view. Additionally, similar to button controls, so also just like radio buttons and checkboxes, the ComboBox control is going to produce an action event whenever the user selects some item in that list. So in order to respond to an item being selected, we'll go ahead and register an event handler. So I've got a small piece of code right here where it's using that setOnAction method, so just like our buttons, radio buttons, and checkboxes. And then what I'm going to go ahead and put inside of the setOnAction method is a lambda expression where we're specifying the event, and then we're setting up that pair of curly braces for the actual body of the method that we want to go ahead and implement. So in this case, that would be that handle method. So in addition to that, ComboBox controls also have a getter and a setter for whatever the selected item happens to be. So we can go ahead and use the getValue method to get whatever item is currently selected in that combo box. We can also use the setValue method to specify a particular item that we want to have selected. Basically what you would do is the thing that you pass into setValue should match one of the items that is in the list. If there's a match like that, it'll just go ahead and have that selected for you. There's also going to be some additional methods we can use to kind of further customize our combo box. One of those is going to be setVisibleRowCount. This one's going to take a count that specifies how many items you want to have visible. So if you have a fairly small list, maybe you start off with only 3 of the items being visible, and you'd have to kind of scroll up and down to be able to see the remainder of them. If you have a much larger list, you might do something like 10. So 10 of the items would be visible within the contents of that box. Essentially what it does is it controls the height of the menu of items whenever you open that up. There's also going to be the setEditable method. So this is going to take a boolean, so it'll either be true or false. If this is set to true, then that control, so the actual area where we see our selection, that's going to be editable, meaning that it'll work just like a text field, so you can delete it, type in your own input there, and further clarify whatever your selection is meant to be. There's also going to be methods like show, hide, and isShowing. These are primarily for controlling the visibility of the menu. For these particular methods, I'm not going to worry too much about going into exactly how to use them or how they work, but essentially this allows you to maybe set it up so that this menu is optional based on some other previous selection that the user makes. So the main ones that I'm going to focus on, we'll go through creating a combo box. We'll set up a event handler so we can provide some behavior to it. We'll also kind of work with things like getValue, setValue, and the other one that I want to look at is going to be setEditable. So we'll take a look at all of those. So we'll come over to NetBeans. We'll go ahead and create a new project. So So we'll go ahead and make a new JavaFX application. Click Next. So for this one, this is going to be my ComboBox demo. So you're using this to demonstrate how the ComboBox works with a fairly simple program. Go ahead and click Finish. And then once the Java code is displayed, go ahead and clean this up a little bit by removing some extra comments that we're not going to need. And adjust the style slightly. Remove this comment, remove the main method. And then we'll also go ahead and remove all of this code inside of the start method, since we'll just go ahead and do this from scratch. And then also up here, we want to go ahead and remove a couple of these imports that we're not going to need. So for this particular one, we of course will still need application, scene, and stage. We're also going to end up using action event and event handler, since we will be implementing some behavior for it. So the only ones we really need to get rid of are going to be button and stack pane. And then right here, what I want to go ahead and add, so the first thing we'll put in is going to be an import for the ComboBox itself. So we'll do import javafx.scene.control.combobox. So again, just like all of our other controls, this will come from that scene.control package. Additionally, I want to go ahead and include a second control that I'm going to be kind of modifying in some way based on what the user is selecting in this ComboBox. So I'm going to go ahead and do a label here. So I'm going to do import javafx.scene.control.label. And then in addition to this, I also need to make sure that I have a container of some kind, so something that could serve as the root node, and that container will also hold both my ComboBox and my label. So we'll go ahead and include that right here as well. javafx.scene.layout. In this case, we'll go ahead and do it with a VBox. So I'm going to end up putting the label with the ComboBox just underneath it. And then right here in the start method, we'll go ahead and start writing in the code for this application. So what I want to do here is I'm going to create a ComboBox that's going to hold an assortment of colors. So those colors will be specified as strings. And then what's going to happen is that whenever the user selects one of those, the color of the text in the label is going to change to match the selection that they made. So to start off with, we'll go ahead and create our ComboBox. So we're going to have ComboBox. This is going to be taking strings, so set it up like so. For the name, I'll just call this ComboBox in all lowercase. Another name you could give it might be something like color ComboBox. Go ahead and call this, or assign this to a new ComboBox object. So make sure that we have both our diamond operator and a pair of parentheses to indicate that we're calling the constructor method. We'll then go ahead and do ComboBox.getItems. So we're going to use that getItems method to get the list of items that are currently in the ComboBox. So initially this is going to be empty. So we want to go ahead and add some new items to it. So we're going to use the addAll method to add a couple of different strings to this. So to start off with, we'll go ahead and just do the three primary colors. So we're going to do red, blue, and green. Go ahead and put those in right there. The other thing I want to go ahead and do is provide some initial value that this is going to be set to. So essentially we're going to be using the set value method to choose one of these three items that will initially be selected whenever the application first opens up and is first running. So we're going to use, again, our ComboBox. So that's going to be the variable name dot set value. And as I mentioned before, when we do set value, we want to make sure that this matches with one of the items that are in it. So in this case, we'll go ahead and choose red. So initially, we'll just select the first option that's in that menu. So the next thing I want to go ahead and do is create my label. So we'll go ahead and make our label. I'll give it a name of just label in all lowercase. So we could do a new label. And for this one, I'll go ahead and say that our sample text is here. So if you want to change this to something else, if you're choosing, you're certainly welcome to. The next thing I want to go ahead and do is make sure that the style of this label is initially set up so that it is going to have that red color for the text. So for this particular one, since the intent here is to do just a single line for setting the color, and then we're going to have another just single line for whenever we want to change the color. The amount of CSS that we need in this program is very small, just 2 lines there. And because of the way that this will end up working, we should not be expecting, there should be no situation where when we scale this up to include more colors, that we would need to add more lines of CSS to this. So when we think about how scalable it is, it should continue to stay constant, should still just be 2 lines. So given all of that, I would say that the most effective way to go about it for this particular application would be to just use inline styling. I think you can go ahead and get away with doing that instead of doing a separate CSS file. So what I'm going to go ahead and do right here, I'm going to go ahead and get that label. We're going to set the style. And it's initially going to be red. So we're going to do FX text fill. And we'll set it to red. Okay. So that way then the style matches up with the first value that we've selected from our combo box. The next thing I want to go ahead and do is create the behavior for this combo box. So for this one, I'll go ahead and use a lambda expression since I just need to add a single line of code to this. So we're going to do ComboBox dot set on action. We can get our event, we'll have our handler, and then we'll have the 2 curly braces for the body of our lambda expression. And inside of here, I'm basically going to do the exact same thing I did before, which was label.setStyle. And inside of here, what I need to go ahead and do is specify the style. So again, we're going to do FX text fill. And then what I want to go ahead and do is use string concatenation to concatenate to this whatever value is currently selected in that combo box. So I need there to be some variability based on what the user has currently selected. So to do that, I'm going to do ComboBox.getValue. So we'll go ahead and try this. And then the last couple of things I need to do is to go ahead and set up my VBox, my scene, and my stage. So I'm going to have our VBox. So I'll call this one just VBox in all lowercase. This will be to a new VBox. And inside of here, we're going to go ahead and put in 10 pixels or 10 points of spacing between them. We're going to have our combo box. Let's do the label and then the combo box. Okay. And then we can go ahead and take our scene. So we'll go ahead and make a new scene object. I'll call that scene in all lowercase. So equal to a new scene. And right here, we're going to go ahead and put in the VBox as our root node. We'll then go ahead and add in 300 for the width and 100 for the height. And then finally, we'll go ahead and set up our stage. We're going to do primary stage.setScene. We'll give it that scene object that we just created. Do primary stage.setTitle. So for this one, we'll go ahead and call this ComboBox Demo. And then at the very end, we're going to say primary stage.show. Okay, so go ahead and save this. Make sure that everything's still visible. And then we'll go ahead and run it. Give this a moment to actually open up. Okay. So we can see now we've got our sample text goes here. It's currently red since that's the selection that we made. So let's see what happens whenever we try to change it. So it's currently red. Let's try changing it to blue. So we see that it's able to change to blue, change it to green. You can see that as well. Change it back to red. And again, everything works. Okay, so we've seen this much. Now let's go ahead and try adding one extra piece to this. So let's say we've got our initial set value to red. Let's go ahead and further customize this. So I'm going to add one more line right here. We're going to do ComboBox Dot Set Editable. So this will initially be true, so it went ahead and just auto-filled it to true since it's usually the intent. So now with this, if we go ahead and run this application again, so now this little field right here is going to be replaced with a text field. You also see that because I've used this, that set value doesn't really work anymore, so it doesn't initially have it set to red. I can still go ahead and select one of these items. So if I select red, it'll go ahead and fill that in there. Text is still red. Go to blue, so it'll fill this in with blue. Change the sample text to match that with something like green. Again, it matches there. And then in addition to this, I can also specify some other colors. So say maybe something like, maybe I want to change it back to just being black. I can do that. We could do something like white. I think it'd be fairly difficult to see. We could also use some of the other named colors that exist in that in CSS for JavaFX. That includes things like the color that I'd used previously when I was showing the that sort of pinkish colored text for the CSS colors originally. So we could try this as well, change it this. So keep in mind with plum that it's kind of a grayish pink. In addition to these, you also have other ones. I think forest green is another one. Yeah. So that gives it a slightly darker shade of green than just regular green. So I'll go ahead and close this out. And so at this point, this is going to cover everything for the combo box. So we saw a little bit about adding a few items to it, maybe using the set value method, as well as using the set editable method, showing a little bit about using this set on action to be able to provide some behavior to it and actually put together a fairly simple but working application. So getting into the next video, we're going to start taking a look at some other controls. For this one, what I'm going to be taking a look at is going to be a combination of both the slider and the text area control.